If you are a US men's national team fan, this right now is the biggest World Cup of your lifetime. It doesn't matter if you're a teenager in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, or 70s, which means you're old enough to run for president. This is the biggest one. This is bigger than the 1994 World Cup that we hosted. Soccer has grown tremendously since the 90s in the United States. And if the US men's national team does well in this World Cup, it could change the sport here forever. So today, I want to go through everything that you have to know before the World Cup starts. Everything United States related. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the ultimate US men's national team World Cup preview. Hello. If you're new here, I'm Filippo and welcome to Tactical Manager TV. And today we have, as I said, the ultimate USA World Cup preview. This is how it's going to go. First, we're going to go through how the United States got here, essentially this 2026 World Cup cycle. I will then dive into our roster, projected starting 11, the group that we were placed in, and I'll close the video with my expectation. This World Cup is also going to happen during the United States' 250th anniversary. Crazy. 250 years. So doing better than England is a must. The last time we humiliated England so badly was when the United States launched the Backstreet Boys to take down the Beatles, and take down the Beatles they did. Now I just need you to drop a like in this video. Just do it right now. It helps the channel a lot. Subscribe so you don't miss out on our World Cup coverage. And I have a question for you that you can let me know in the comment section down below. What would you consider a successful World Cup for the US men's national team? Round of 16, quarterfinals, semifinals, obviously, but would quarterfinals be successful? And what would you say is the bare minimum? All right, let's roll the intro and start the episode. Okay, let's start with a full recap of how we got here, right? Essentially the entire cycle. And I'm not going to do any research. I have everything memorized right here. Some people even say I have the best memory on YouTube. I remember everything. And I've covered this cycle from start to finish. So let's go back all the way to January of 2023, which is when this cycle started, right? Right after the 2022 World Cup in Qatar that ended in late December. And of course, this cycle was off to a hot start. It started with the Berhalter-Reina saga. Not really a report, Berhalter created a Twitter or X account, that's what they call it these days, and he just posted a story about how he had a domestic violence case in the 90s where apparently he kicked his now wife that was a girlfriend. Obviously, everything's good between them. Everything has been sorted out between them. But that leaked because there were issues between Berhalter and Reina during the World Cup, Giovanni Reina. With that, Danielle and Claudio Reina apparently talked to Ernie Stewart, the soccer director at the time, and that became a big problem. So after the World Cup, Berhalter was out of contract, and it looked like they were going to renew the contract with him. But because of that case, the Berhalter-Reina saga that leaked, Berhalter was no longer in charge of the national team. So US Soccer put Anthony Hudson, the assistant coach, one of the assistant coaches, as the interim head coach. And they hired a third-party firm to find a new head coach for the US men's national team, right? And this firm that they probably paid a lot of money took 6 months to find a new coach. So we had Anthony Hudson in charge for 6 months. Right before the summer of 2023, Anthony Hudson would abandon the team and go work in Qatar. And BJ Callahan, a US men's national team head coaching legend, one of the best coaches I've ever seen with the United States, he took over right before the summer. Now, this is where things get interesting. So BJ Callahan called the roster and everything, and we were going to play Mexico in the semifinals. And believe me, this actually happened. You can go look it up yourself. Like 5 minutes before kickoff, or right before, or right at kickoff, when the United States was going to play Mexico, The Athletic with Paul Tenorio, they leaked that Greg Berhalter was going to be back with the national team. I swear. They hired a third-party firm to hire a new coach for the national team. And after 6 months of an extensive search, they hired the same guy that had a mediocre cycle, had off-the-field drama with a player and the player's family and a lot of bullshit that happened. Berhalter was back. That was a buzz killer, right? Because even guys that defended Berhalter did not want him back at that point. Even the guys that said that he did a fine job, they were all saying it was time to move on. Regardless, in the Nations League, we balled out under BJ Callahan. We won it. We went to the 2023 Gold Cup with like a MLS B squad, and BJ Callahan ultimately lost to Panama. We were out, and then Berhalter took over again. So now we must talk about the Berhalter 2.0 era, which starts right after the summer of 2023. So we had a few friendlies here and there. We had a few good results, a few bad results. Eventually, in 2024, Berhalter would go on to win the CONCACAF Nations League once again. We would defeat, if I'm not mistaken, Panama in the semifinals? Actually, no, that was not Panama. We faced Jamaica. We defeated Jamaica in the semifinals in a very lucky win, right? We scored a last-minute goal to take it to extra time. And then Gio Reyna, the same guy that Berhalter had issues with, right? Or even you could say betrayed, or they betrayed each other, whatever you want to call it. He saved Berhalter's ass, and the United States made it to the final. In the final, the United States defeated Mexico with a beautiful goal from Tyler Adams. That was a 2-0 win, but Tyler Adams scored a tremendous goal, and Berhalter won the CONCACAF Nations League. Now, that made people think that, hey, this guy knows how to win trophies in CONCACAF, which to a certain extent is true, even though he definitely had the most talented team in CONCACAF. But then we've reached the summer of 2024. And let me tell you, that was a summer to forget for the United States and for Greg Berhalter. We start off the summer getting trashed by Colombia 5-1. Then we played Brazil and we tied them. So everyone thought everything was good. But little did everyone know that Brazil was a hot mess back then, led by Dorival Jr. They would later on hire Carlo Ancelotti, but Brazil was a mess. And we saw that in the Copa America. But they weren't as big of a mess as the United States. The United States in the 2024 Copa America became the first host nation to get grouped at home. Yes, you heard that right. The first Copa America host nation to get grouped. And mind you, we were not in a tough group. We had a Uruguayan side that was decent under Marcelo Bielsa, but not great, right? They didn't even make it to the final. They lost in the semis. We had Panama and Bolivia without the altitude. And we still got grouped. Now, mind you, many people are going to blame Tim Weah because he punched the Panamanian player and got a red. And yes, he has a lot of blame for it. But ultimately, Greg Berhalter's time with the national team has always been mediocre. And he's gotten lucky many times. Eventually, he ran out of luck. And once he ran out of luck, the embarrassment came. Lucky for us, that happened in the Copa America and not in the 2026 World Cup. So that led to a lot of pressure from the media, the fan base. Everyone wanted Greg Berhalter out. And ultimately, U.S. Soccer parted ways with him a few days after the Copa America. A few weeks after, they announced probably the biggest coaching hire in U.S. men's national team history, Mauricio Pochettino. Definitely the most expensive one. And Pochettino took over. Now let's talk about the Pochettino era, which leads us all the way to this World Cup. So the Pochettino era as a whole was off to a rough start, right? He had a few friendlies. We didn't play too well. That's fine. He needed time to get to know the player pool. We beat Jamaica in the quarterfinals of the Nations League, and then we made it to the Nations League, which was played, I believe, in March of 2025. And then once we played that Nations League, we lost in the semifinals. That was the first time that we lost the Nations League in general, but we lost it in the semifinals to Panama, and then we lost the losers game to Canada, the third place game. So that was terrible. Fast forward to the summer, we go to the Gold Cup, where Pulisic decided to rest, Musa rejected a call-up, many players weren't there, and ultimately Pochettino also lost the Gold Cup, this time to Mexico in the final. After the Gold Cup, we had a few shaky friendlies. I believe against South Korea we weren't great. Against Japan we started to look better. And then in late 2025, Pochettino actually had some very good friendlies where the United States played well. We beat, I think, Uruguay 5-1. We beat Australia. We beat, we beat Paraguay that we're going to face in the World Cup. So things were starting to look better. Then we go to March of 2026. Okay, March of 2026. The United States played Belgium and Portugal in that camp, which was the last camp before the World Cup, right before the World Cup roster. We didn't look good. Those are good opponents, but we didn't look good. So people were worried. But fast forward to today, he called up the U.S. men's national team roster that we're going to talk about in a second. We played Senegal, that's a dark horse candidate in the World Cup. We beat them 3-2, playing very well. Then we played Germany, where we lost 2-1 recently, right before the World Cup. And we actually played well. So what's my point here? It's been a messy cycle. Not in a good way, right? A very bad cycle for the United States as a whole. We didn't really have World Cup qualifying to test ourselves. And when we were tested in the Gold Cup, Copa America, we didn't do well. The last two results right before the World Cup, which is what truly matters, we've looked good. So my overall point here is that you have to drop a like button in this video if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel. and there is reason to be optimistic. So now we can talk about the US men's national team roster, projected starting 11, our group, and my expectations. But before we do so, I have a special offer for you from the sponsor of this video, Proton VPN. The link will be in the description. We'll be back in 60 seconds. Do not go anywhere. The World Cup is here, and you want to watch the games without being watched. And that's why today we are partnering up with Proton VPN. With Proton VPN, you can watch the games with no tracking, no data collection, and your privacy being protected. I mean, we don't want that search history leaking. Essentially, you watch the game without being watched. Also, if you are traveling outside of the United States or out of your own home country during the World Cup, you can use Proton VPN. And that will allow you to access your home broadcasts from the subscriptions that you already have. Some people prefer a more familiar broadcast, so even miles away, it still feels like home. And if you use my link, which is protonvpn.com/tactical, or you can just click it in the description, you will get Proton VPN with a special deal that is valid throughout the World Cup. And this is big. You'll get 50% off if you sign up for 1 month. You'll get 65% off if you sign up for a full year. Now, if you sign up for 2 years, you get 70% off, which comes out to be less than $3 a month. Again, go to protonvpn.com/tactical to get those special offers. Thank you very much, Proton VPN, for sponsoring the channel. Okay, so we're going to go through the roster before we go to the projected starting 11 and then the groups. And I understand I've had a stream covering the roster and I made a video covering the roster. But again, as I promised, in this video, I am going through everything you have to know. So we have to dive into the roster real quick. Now, goalkeepers, we have young promising goalkeeper from the Chicago Fire, Chris Brady, Matt Freese from New York City FC. That is very likely our starter, even though he's number 24. And then Matt Turner, that is number 1, but I think Turner's the backup of Matt Freese. When it comes to defenders, we have the fullbacks and the center backs. So Max Arfston is a left back from the Columbus Crew, even though he plays more like a winger. But for Pochettino, he's like a wing back, a left wing back. Serginho Dest from PSV, very likely our starting right wing back or right back. Alex Freeman from Villarreal that came out of Orlando City. He can play as a center back and can play as a right back. Very likely for the U.S., he plays more as a right center back in the back three. Now, we also have Mark McKenzie that plays for Toulouse in France, the center back. Tim Ream, the center back from Charlotte FC. Chris Richards from Crystal Palace, our best center back in my opinion. Anthony Robinson, a left wing back, left back from Fulham. Miles Robinson, that has no business being here. He's a center back for the United States national team in Cincinnati. He's not been good in MLS. He's not been good for the national team, but he's made the roster. Okay, here he is. I personally would not have brought him. I would have brought in Aiden Morris. That is a defensive center mid. We don't need another center back, especially at his level, or Tanner Tessman, even if he was half fit, but whatever. Then you have Joe Scally, a right wing back that can also play as a center back in the back three for the United States from Borussia Mönchengladbach in Germany. And then Austin Trusty, a center back from Celtic in Scotland. Okay. Now going on to the midfielders and the forwards. For midfielders, we have Tyler Adams from Bournemouth, Sebastian Berhalter from the Vancouver Whitecaps, Weston McKennie from Juventus, Giovanni Reina from Borussia Mönchengladbach, Christian Roldan from the Seattle Sounders, and Malik Tillman from Leverkusen. Now, midfield is where I have the most concern in terms of depth, especially the double pivot midfield. Okay, because very likely we're going to have Tyler or Tillman start together, or Tyler Adams and McKennie. After that, you have Berhalter and Roldan. Berhalter has not looked terrible in the friendlies, but I do have question marks in regards to how he will look in the World Cup. Hopefully, if he plays, he does well. We kind of need it because they will absorb meaningful minutes, right? Berhalter and Roldan. They'll probably play a lot in the group stage. They might even start. Okay, I hate to scare some of you guys, but don't be surprised if Berhalter or Roldan start at least one game in the group stage. At least one of them, or they get meaningful minutes off the bench. I think Berhalter is more likely to play. He's also looked better than Roldan. Now, am I comfortable with that? No, but I hope I bite my tongue. I hope he proves me wrong. Gio Reyna is more of an attacking mid, right? It's not going to play there. Now, McKennie can play both, but Mauricio Pochettino has been using McKennie more as an attacking midfielder than a central midfielder. So that's why I don't include McKennie very often in that double pivot depth chart in the 3-4-2-1. That we're going to show very soon on screen what the lineup looks like, because Pochettino's been using him more as an attacking midfielder. Tillman was the one that played deeper, when we play these two friendlies against Senegal and Germany. And then we have the forwards, which would be like some of the attacking mids, the wingers, and the center forward. So we have Brendan Aronson from Leeds. He's an attacking mid slash winger. Following Balogun from Monaco, one of our center forwards, probably the starter. Ricardo Pepi, one of our center forwards as well, fighting for a spot with Balogun. Christian Pulisic, our best player, attacking midfielder, winger. Tim Weah, that he'll play up top if we're playing with wingers. If we're playing with tucked in tens, then Weah will probably play as a right wing back or a right back. Okay, Tim Weah is versatile enough to do so. Haji Wright, the center forward from Coventry that got promoted to the Premier League. Now, he's our third option behind Balogun and Pepe. And then you have Alejandro Zendejas that's been quite good in Liga MX in Mexico for Club America. Now, I'm not going to dive into snubs, okay, guys? Like, people are going to ask, where's Johnny Cardoso? He's injured. Tanner Tessman wasn't called in. Aiden Morris wasn't called in. I'm not going to dive into all the snubs. I've done that in the live stream. I've done that also in a video covering the roster. So now let's go to the projected starting 11 because that's kind of important, right? The projected starting 11 is extremely important, actually, because you can get a big picture of like where each player will play. When I talked about like McKennie, for example, that's what I meant, right? About him playing higher up the field. And you can see that on screen. As you can see, I'm using the FootMob lineup builder. If you want to download the FootMob app, the link will be in the description. You can download it for free, and also you're helping the channel in the process. They're not sponsoring this video. It's just a website and app that I very much use, so you can use the link in the description. Okay, so starting 11. Very likely Pochettino will play a 3-4-2-1. Sometimes it looks like a 3-4-3. Okay, 3-4-3, this is what will change. The players will go wide. And then with the 3-4-3, McKennie might not be here, or he'll be here, and Des sometimes go high up the field. Some of the games we've seen the team also look like this, right, where they like kind of shift this way, and then Des was playing as a winger, as you can see on screen. We look different in different phases of play, but ultimately, if we're going to oversimplify it, very likely it'll be a standard 3-4-2-1. Okay, once again, in different phases of play, we can see Pulisic drift wide, McKennie go central, Des high up the field, something like this. This can happen. Okay, sometimes even like this, like Tillman goes up and we play like this in possession sometimes. It can happen, right? Different phases of play. We're going to play different ways, but the standard formation is like this: a 3-4-3 formation with Freeze on goal, Freeman, Richards, if Richards is healthy. Right now, Richards didn't play the two friendlies because he wasn't fully fit, but he's expected to be fit for the World Cup. Ream, also the captain, very old player, but he's the captain of the U.S. national team. Anthony Robinson on the left wingback position. Tyler and Tillman in the double pivot. McKennie and Pulisic as the double tens, and Balogun up top. And you're going to be saying, why isn't Tillman high up the field and McKennie back? McKennie's better as a box-to-box, and Tillman is more goal dangerous. Guys, this is not my lineup. I've said this many times. This is not my lineup. This is what I think Pochettino will do based on what we saw in the friendlies. That's what he did in the friendlies. So don't shoot the messenger. This is the projected starting 11. Now, what could change? I mean, he could end up starting Pepe. Pepe has looked good for the national team in the friendly, so maybe Pepe starts up top. That can happen. Okay, that's one thing. Now, maybe he doesn't start Des. He starts Weah here. That can also happen. I find it unlikely. And if Chris Richards is injured, you'll probably see Mark McKenzie play there. I would hope, not Miles Robinson. So these are small changes that could happen in this team. Also, I wouldn't be surprised if Berhalter starts over Tillman at some point, or Tillman starts over McKennie here. So I'm just showing on screen some changes that could happen. But the first lineup that I showed you is the actual projected starting 11. That can change during the World Cup. Coaches make different decisions due to different opponents. Injuries happen, suspensions happen, a lot can happen. Now, here's another important information that you must know. Who do we play in the World Cup? So we play Paraguay on Friday, June 12th at 9 p.m. Eastern time. Yes, we'll be doing a live watch along for all these games. All these games we'll be doing a live watch along. Then we play Australia, June 19th at 3 p.m. Eastern time, another Friday. So as you can see, there's a whole week of rest for the players between each games, which is a lot more days than they had in the last World Cup, which was every 4 days. Then we play Turkey in the last game of the group stage at 10 p.m. Eastern time on a Thursday, June 25th. Okay. And if I'm not mistaken, we play Paraguay in LA, Australia in Seattle, Turkey in LA. Okay. In case you guys need to know that. And going through our group here real quick, let's just go through our table. I went through the games. We have obviously here Australia, Paraguay, Turkey, and the United States, as I said. The top two of each group advance directly, and the 8 best third place teams out of the 12 groups also advance. Okay. I've said this before and I'll say it again. When I talk about the expectation, I think we should top this group. This is the easiest group we've ever had in World Cup history. And I'll talk about that in the expectation section. But just for context, Australia is a tough team to break down, very good defensively, but they're not a strong side to punish us up top. And this is it. This is one of the weakest Australian sides that I've seen in many years. Just saying. Paraguay, strong team, a lot of fight in them. But again, they were sixth place in common ball to qualify. So technically, this is the weakest South American team in the World Cup, Paraguay, because Bolivia didn't qualify in the Interconfederate playoffs or Interconfederation playoffs, whatever. So Paraguay is technically the weakest South American nation in the World Cup. And I think they are. They're not better than Uruguay. They're not better than Brazil, not better than Argentina, not better than Ecuador, not better than Colombia. That doesn't mean they're a bad team. But if you're going to play a South American nation, I'll take Paraguay in the World Cup. Then you have Turkey. Good team, mainly led by Arda Güler and Yildiz up top. Those are the two players you have to take care of. But out of the European nations, this is one of the weakest ones. I would say there's probably 3 or 4 teams that are worse than Turkey. But after that, out of the 16 teams, there are at least 10 European nations that are better than Turkey. So if you're going to have a European side in your group, I'll take Turkey. They're a good team, and we should not underestimate them. But I'll take it. It's the World Cup. There are no easy opponents, right? So that's the United States' group. Last but not least, I'd like to kindly request for you to hit the like button right now in this video if you haven't already. And in the final section of this video, let's talk about my expectations for the United States in the World Cup. Okay, so what are my expectations for the U.S. men's national team this World Cup? My expectations is for us to have the best World Cup we've ever had in U.S. men's national team history. And you're going to be saying, those are some pretty damn high expectations. I think they're reasonable, okay? We have the most expensive coach we've ever had. We have the most talented generation we've ever had. And we're playing at home. Why should I expect less? And I've done videos going through the bracket, right? And as long as we top our group, our toughest opponent all the way to the round 16 would be Belgium, which that's a very tough team. But out of the many teams we could face, that is a beatable European side. So what are my expectations? I think we need to top our group because this is the weakest group we've ever had in the World Cup. And don't get me wrong, this is not a weak group. I also made a video on that. It is the weakest group, but it's not a weak group. But we have to top this group. We have to be ahead of Turkey. We have to be ahead of Paraguay. We have to be ahead of Australia. Once we do that, we will get a favorable matchup in the round of 32. Win the round of 32, most likely play Belgium in the round of 16, pull an upset there, and then make it to the quarterfinals. After that, it is what it is. If we can somehow pull a semifinals, good for us, but that is an unrealistic expectation. So my expectation is for us to make it to the quarterfinals, which would be the first time in history that we actually win 2 knockout games in the World Cup. It would be the best World Cup in the history of the program, and it would be tremendous for soccer in this country. All right, everyone, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to drop a like before you go. And don't forget, we will be doing a full coverage of the World Cup, match previews, live watch-alongs, post-games, everything U.S. men's national team related, so don't miss out on that. Thank you very much, Proton VPN, for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to use their special offer. The link will be in the description of this video. And thank you for watching. Thank you for the support, and have a great day.